Hey, how's it going? How you doing? My name is John. Welcome to Terra Nova. As these guys just said, we are in part 2 of the series. Kicked it off last week called Pack Your Bags. It's a series, to put this briefly, it's a series about how to prepare to get to wherever it is you got to go from where you currently are that you really just got to from where you recently were. Or maybe even more briefly put, how to prepare for what's next, how to get ready for whatever's next, because there's always a what's next, and we're always thinking about what's next, right? As that great philosopher of our day, Jerry Seinfeld, pointed out, that wherever we are in life, and really whenever we are in life, whatever season we are in life, we're always thinking about what's next. We're never content really just to be there. We're always thinking about the next thing, the next day, the next job, the next deal, the next season, the next chapter of our lives. And there always is a what's next coming up. And this is really true, that sometimes the change or transition that's in front of us is something we know about. And sometimes what's next catches us off guard. And it's a surprise. We did not know that that was going to happen or that that was coming. And this really is true as well, that often the thing we think will be different when we get to whatever is what's next isn't really what we thought it would be, that actually surprises us a bit too. It's like we know that when we get there, that there will be different. But very often what we thought or hoped would be different about there isn't as different as we thought or hoped it would be. And then in many cases, there are a whole lot of other things that are different, that are not what we expected. The law of unintended consequences. Turns out there were some things that we didn't see and we didn't know. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. It's really what this series is about. We started last week with what we said were 3 really foundational preparing for what's next principles. And the first one was this, that there's really no correlation between knowing what's next and actually being prepared for what's next. And we kind of tend to think that, well, I know what's next, I know what that is, that because we know we're prepared, but knowing what's next or thinking we know what's next is very different from actually being prepared for what's next. And then the second principle we said is this one right here, that along with whatever else you're packing for what's next, and you are packing for what's next, that along with everything else, you pack you. That wherever you go, there you are. And we talked about what I call the win-then principle. The win-then principle says, hey, when things change, I'll change. Like when things are different, I'll be different. Once I get there, like once I get out of the house, I just need to get out of this house. Once I get to school, once I get married. Like once I get married, then I'll change and then I'll be different. Or once I get out of this marriage, once I get out of this job and into a new job, once we have kids, then I'll be, once the kids are gone, then things will change and I will change. I will be different. We just need to get out of this town. We just need to get out of Southern California. If we could only get out of Southern California, things would be better. I would be better. I would be different. But we said last week that changes in my circumstances do not result in changes in my character magically. They just don't, because once you get there, you'll still be you. You'll still be you, same morals, same decision-making compass, same thinking, same subconscious impulses and instincts and reactions, same proclivities, same unfinished business. You will actually still be you, and the new location will not change that. And then that connects to a third principle, and that's this: your future, that what's next, is actually inextricably linked with your what's now, with your present, which in turn is actually linked to your past, which is why unfinished business from our past is always showing up in our present, and unfinished business in the present, will show up in your future. They are all connected. And that's why last weekend, with this idea in mind, we really just camped out on this first real big idea for preparing for what's next. That if I want to prepare for what's next, I really need to learn what needs to be learned from what's now. If I want to be ready for what's next, I have to learn from what I need to learn from what's now and from what's been. And if I don't, we said, I will, while I'm packing all my bags for what's next, I will unwittingly smuggle my unlearned lessons and all my unfinished business and my unresolved issues and my unfulfilled obligations and expectations to my new location. And when I open up my bags there, it'll all be there, and I will have a tendency to repeat those same things all over again. I want to learn what I need to learn now and finish what I need to finish now. Now, today, we're going back to that first big preparing for what's next principle, that knowing what's next does not mean you are prepared for what's next. And we've all had some what's next that we didn't plan on. And we've all had some what's next, some seasons of life that didn't go as we planned, that were not what we hoped or expected. That is not what I thought it would be like. That isn't what I thought or hoped would happen. And we've all had some what's nexts that ended up as regrets. Isn't that true? Like there were some decisions, there were some moves, there was that season, and you went into it gung-ho with high hopes, and it ended up being a regret. Like, I wish we had never bought that house. I wish we had never invested in that. I wish we had just never gone there. I wish we had never made that move. I mean, we thought it was a good idea, but once we got there was a set of dominoes that got tipped, and there was a whole thing that got unleashed, and I just wish we hadn't done that. I wish I'd never moved in with him. I wish we hadn't gotten so serious so quickly. I wish I hadn't left that situation so quickly. I wish I hadn't easily left. We talked about that last week. Wherever you are, do not easily leave. I wish I hadn't. Regrets. And regrets that in hindsight often seem so obvious. Am I right? Like, I should have seen that coming. I should have seen that coming, which is something we've probably all thought of ourselves. And we have all definitely thought about other people, like they really should have seen that coming. Like, how did they not see that coming? How did they not see that train wreck? I mean, everyone saw that. Did they not see it? And the idea is, if I had seen that coming, if I had just seen that coming, I could have maybe avoided some regretful what's next, or chosen the right what's next, and at very least, I could have been better prepared for what's next. And that's where we're going today, because when it comes to what's next, there are always things that I can't see, and there are always things that I don't know, but I don't know what I don't know. And that's a problem. If I know what I don't know, I can find that out. But if I don't know what I don't know, so here's the question. When I don't even know what I don't know, how can I avoid that wrong, regretful what's next and choose the better what's next and maybe, just maybe, be better prepared for what's next? And the challenge with all of this, the challenge with this whole part right here is that the decision-making environment, the environment in which we're choosing that next season in life, that path in life, it is always so emotional. Because within that environment, there's always things that I want. I want it, and it's often something that's maybe immediate or short-term. She's so hot, or he makes me happy, or it's so shiny and new, and it's more money, it's a bigger house. And honey, if we have more money or bigger, like everything will be better and everything will be fixed. And there are things that we really want. And then at the same time, maybe not consciously, there are things that we are afraid of. There are things that we fear. I'm afraid of missing out. I'm not aware, but if this may not be a great idea, but if I don't jump on this, it may not come back around again. And then I will have missed out. I'm afraid of being alone. And yeah, this relationship might not be all that great, but she may be the last train leaving the station. He just may be the last train leaving the station. And if I don't get on that train, I might be alone. And I'm afraid of being alone. And fear turns a want into a need. And now I need this. I need this. I need this to work. I need this to be a good thing. It's not a good thing, but I need it to be a good thing. And desire blends with fear to create a very murky decision-making environment. Now, last week, we said that there is a collection of wisdom in the ancient Hebrew scriptures that's just packed with wise sayings and help for us to navigate in our lives. It's a famous collection. It's called the Book of Proverbs, and you may have heard of the Book of Proverbs before. A proverb is a short, wise, like pithy saying, and when it comes to the murky world of navigating our lives and making decisions, Proverbs contains one consistent warning, like repeated over and over and over and over again, with two essential applications. And if we will consistently heed this warning and apply these two applications, we will consistently avoid the wrong or regretful what's next and choose the right what's next, and we will be prepared for whatever is next. And the warning that the book of Proverbs contains over and over again is simply this: do not trust yourself. In fact, I want you to say this out loud with me. 1, 2, 3. Do not trust yourself. Like, do not lean on or rely on your own understanding of the events and the landscape. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Do not think you got this. And do not, by any terms or circumstances, do not follow your heart. Do not follow your heart. Contrary to everything you'll ever hear on TV and in movies and on social media, do not follow your heart, because, by the way, did you know this? The universal conclusion of all decision-making science is that your heart lies to you. Why would you follow a liar? Everyone in the field of decision-making science knows your heart lies to you. It deceives you all the time. It's so full of this jumbled mess of what you want and what you're afraid of. Your heart will lie to you. Do not follow a liar. Do not follow your heart. And do not think you know everything you need to know. Now, the keystone proverb for this is very famous. It's Proverbs 3, 5 through 7. And it says this. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and here it is, do not lean on your own understanding. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Do not lean. And the idea of do not lean, it carries this idea of propping something up against something else, or putting the weight of something on something else. And I was thinking about this. I came across a bunch of pictures online. You owe it to yourself to Google "There, I fixed it." You really should. There, I fixed it. And I came up with a few pictures that I thought I would show you. Here's one. Talk about leaning. You don't have a left rear wheel, no problem. Just jam a dolly up under there. There, I fixed it, right? Only you need a guy to ride in the back to like steer the dolly, which is kind of like a hook and ladder type deal, which is kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. Here's one. You need to work under your car and you don't have a lift? No problem. Just prop it up with some 4x4s, climb right under there. What could go wrong? Seriously, what could go wrong? My favorite one is this: instant pool bar. How great is that? Just stick the pub table in the middle of the pool, and you got your jams, you got your drinks. Now, zoom in real quick on this magic floating device here. I initially thought that this power strip was duct taped to the sandals. It's not. It's just jammed into the straps like that. Now, these two creative geniuses were sought after to interview, like how they came up with their idea. Unfortunately, they're no longer with us. But it really raises this question, like, okay, so what am I relying on? What am I putting the weight of my life on? What am I trusting in? And Proverbs says again and again and again, do not put the weight of yourself on yourself and on your own understanding. Now, what's interesting is who it is that's saying this, because the writer or originator of so many of these sayings in the book of Proverbs is believed to be a man named Solomon. And Solomon was, hands down, history tells us, the greatest administrative king that the nation of Israel ever had. During his reign, the nation reached their zenith, like their golden age, largely due to him and his wisdom. He was a poet, a philosopher, an architect, a theologian, a scientist, an advisor, a judge. People would travel from all over the world just to get a couple minutes with him to say, hey, let me run something by you. Let me get what you think of this. He was reputed in his day. Here's his reputation. How'd you like this? Wisest man ever. Now, that might be hyperbole, but it's still a pretty cool reputation. Like, that person is probably the wisest person who's ever lived. In other words, if there ever was a person who could say, I got this, and probably did. Like, I got this, I know, I understand the landscape, I know what I need to know, I can make this decision. It's this guy right here, Solomon, and yet it is this wise person who becomes the most outspoken opponent of ever trusting yourself in a decision-making environment, of ever thinking you know what you need to know, or leaning or relying on your own understanding. warning, do not trust yourself. And instead, Proverbs consistently urges us to do two very, very smart things. And the first application of the warning is this: do not trust your heart, but trust God with your heart. Do not trust your own heart. You trust God with all your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, that proverb begins, because it's like when I'm navigating and I'm making these decisions and this next season, these what's nexts, it's so easy to deceive myself, to lie to myself about what I want and why I want it, to talk myself into what I want. I cannot trust myself. Instead, Solomon says, you trust or you lean hard. You lean hard into God. And that word trust is the Hebrew word batak. And it means to put like your confidence in, or to rely on, or actually even surrender yourself to. It's the idea behind the infamous trust fall. Like, anybody ever do this thing? Like your employer made everybody kind of do this type of thing. It's this idea of, I put all my weight, I put all of my confidence, my surrender, my trust, and I'm putting that in God. Not, by the way, not information about God, not knowledge about God, not facts and insights related to God. I'm putting it into God himself. It's personal, it's relational. I'm leaning into God in this area of my life. Now, that idea is then unpacked further in the next parallel line. He goes on to say, in all your ways. Trust God with all your heart, in all your ways. In other words, every path, all of the various arenas of your life. It's like, in my financial ways, in my dating ways, in my marriage ways, in my friendship paths, my vocational path, my parenting path, my financial path, my business. I'm in all my ways, I left this next line as a blank in your outline. You can write this in. In all your ways, know him. Know him. Now, many of your translations, if you're following along in your own Bible, it'll translate this word yada as like acknowledge or something, which, I mean, it can be translated that way. But I don't like it, because in our use of that word, acknowledge is pretty weak. It's pretty soft. It is like the minimal relational requirement for you to be aware that someone else even exists. He didn't even acknowledge me. It's like, you give somebody a nod maybe, or if you really want to step it up, like, sup? Like, whatever, hey, you exist. Hey, what's up? I acknowledge you, right? In fact, turn to somebody next to you and just acknowledge them. Just be like, hey, what's up? Hey, I see you, right? And some of you didn't do it. It's like, you didn't acknowledge me. That's not what this means. That is not what this means here. This isn't talking about, hey, you go ahead and do what you want in all of your ways. You just follow your own heart and you do what you want. But you just make sure you give God the head nod and the thumb, like while you're heading off to party the way, like you just acknowledge, make sure you acknowledged him on the way. That is not what this is talking about. The Hebrew word yada is the word for knowing somebody. Knowing somebody. And knowing somebody personally, relationally, even intimately, as in knowing someone in the biblical sense, if you've ever heard that phrase, that's this word, this same word, yada. It's to know somebody, to be connected to somebody. In other words, in every arena of my life, God, I want to know you. I want to know you. I want to be connected with you. As I walk down this path, I want to walk down it with you, relating to you as I go. I want to know you better as I'm doing this, like how I'm spending my money, how and who I'm dating, what career path I'm choosing, where I'm deciding to live or move to, how I'm raising my kids. God, I want to make sure I am knowing you and knowing you better along this path. And Solomon concludes, if you will do this, and he makes an observation, if you will do this, he will make your paths straight. And the language here implies guidance and direction. But it actually implies even more than that. This isn't just, and you will kind of know the right thing to do and he will guide your path. It actually implies that the path itself will be straighter. it will be better. It'll be a more direct route, and you will avoid some detours, and you will avoid some painful dead ends and some big regrets and a bunch of wasted years and tons of wasted money. And what's next? He will make your path straight. And Solomon's like, hey, this is how life works. I have seen it happen and happen again, and I just want to pass this on to you. As men and women build into their everyday lives the rhythm, the habit of trusting God and leaning into God and knowing God in every arena of life, not just the one they want some insight on, God begins to make their paths a little clearer, a little more obvious, even when they don't know how that was being done, and better, more straight, more direct. Warning, do not trust yourself. Solomon say again and again, do not trust yourself. Do not trust yourself with yourself. Do not trust your own heart, but trust God with your heart. Now, that being said, I bet there are people here, including myself, who have found yourself in situations where you really did want to know what God wanted. And you really did want to know God, and you were not trusting yourself and your own understanding with what you were choosing to do, but the path did not seem obvious or direct, and you still ended up making some bad decisions. And we have all found ourselves in circumstances where there was just too much emotion, and we were too close to the situation, and we lacked the experience or the context necessary to even know what we did not know to make a wise decision. We can't see what we can't see. We don't know what we don't know. And in those contexts, simply praying, I'm praying, and I'm listening like, okay, is he saying something, or is he answering my prayer? And then I open up the Bible and like find something and go, this is what I'm going to do. And then we still find ourselves wondering what to do. That is not going to get us there. In fact, Solomon never even suggests that we do something like that. Instead, he gives us a second application of his warning. And the second application is this. The second application is do not make decisions alone. Do not make decisions alone. Ask wise people to help you make that decision. And again, the person in scriptures who has the most to say about this is Solomon, the one guy in the room who probably could have made some really good decisions all by his own. And he says over and over and over again, if you want to consistently make wise decisions and avoid some regretful what's next, if you want to be prepared for what's next, invite other people, numerous other people into the decision-making process. Now, there are so many proverbs about this right here. I'm just going to give you like a mini sampler plate. Okay, here's just a mini sampler plate of this idea in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 12:15. The way, I love this, of fools seems right to them. And isn't that true? Isn't that true? Like the dumbest thing you've ever done, or the dumbest thing you've ever seen anybody else done? When they were doing it, like it seemed right. I mean, you had a story that make that seem right. But here's what he says, but the wise listen to, not just seek it out, they actually listen to, say that word out loud together, advice. Proverbs 13:10. Arrogance, I got this. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I don't need to ask anybody. Leads only to conflict, often with one's wife, or husband, or parents, or some other poor person who got sucked into our outcomes unwittingly, unintentionally, because we were so arrogant and thought we knew what we were doing, leads only to conflict. But wisdom is found with those who take, say the word out loud again, advice. Proverbs 19:20. Get all the advice and instruction you can get. Get all that you can get and be wise the rest of your life. Wise people eat and drink wisdom and advice and instruction and counsel and correction and criticism and feedback. They eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like they lean into it because they are lifelong learners. I want to be wise for the rest of my life, so you bring it on. Proverbs 15:22. Plans fail. Oh man, I didn't see that coming. This isn't how I thought that was going to turn out. How did I end up here? How did this end up so badly? Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many, not just one or two, many, say that word out loud, advisors, they succeed. And here's why. One last one, and then we'll move on. Because there's a path before every single one of us, and it just seems right. Every single one of us, there's a path in front of us that it just feels right. It just feels so right. And everything is falling into place. It's a God thing. Everything just opened up wide. It's so perfect. It just feels so right. And there is a path in front of every single person that feels so right. And it is quite literally a dead end. In other words, Solomon says, it is dumb and destructive to make decisions in a vacuum. It's not just dumb, it's actually painful and destructive to make decisions in a vacuum, to make decisions in your own echo chamber if you want to consistently avoid regret and avoid regretful chapters in your life and choose the best and the brightest and the right what's next and be really better prepared for what's next. Invite other people, invite a lot of other people into that process. Do not make decisions on your own. Do not even try to follow God's guidance in a vacuum. Now, you just need to know, I am a fanatic. I am an absolute freak when it comes to the application of this concept in my own life. Over the years, as I've bitten off like big things or stepped into new what's next, I have always sought out the best and brightest people who knew what that was about to ask them every question I would ask them. And here's something I've discovered. And by the way, I've talked to so many people about this who've had a similar experience. The best and brightest people, often people I didn't even know. I mean, these were sometimes leaders within that certain arena. And I called them up and said, hey, here's my situation. Can I have an hour of your time to ask you a few questions? Every single one of them has always said yes. I have driven all over Southern California asking people who knew more than I knew about what they did and how they did it and what I needed to see. I am a fanatic about this. I hardly ever make any decisions without running things by a handful of people. I firmly believe that God leads us and speaks to us in community and with other people. But some of you right now, and I know, I get it. Some of you are wanting to raise your hand and go, can I tell my story now? Because I asked a bunch of people some advice, and that went terribly. Like we paid this money. My wife went to see this counselor, and we spent thousands of dollars like trying to undo that mess. Or I was starting a new business, and my friend told me, here's what I should do. And I took that advice, and everything went belly up, and we lost everything in that deal. And it is true that all of us, many of us have stories, but probably all of us have some stories of getting some very, very bad advice. And I want to suggest to you that the issue is not should you not seek the input of others. And the issue is not, does God give guidance through other people? Does he speak through other people as we're trying to follow him? I think the issue is so often, it simply comes down to who we ask and what we ask. And we need to, if we're going to apply this principle to our lives, we need to learn how to ask the right people the right questions. How to ask the right people the right questions. So let me give you just a few tips on who you need to ask, who I'm always thinking about asking to get the most out of this essential principle. We need to ask the right people. And first of all, the right people are people who are going to tell you the truth. Not necessarily what you want to hear. A friend of mine used to always say, everybody needs a Simon. He would say that all the time. Everybody needs a Simon. And he was talking about this guy right here. I don't know if you remember him, American Idol's Simon Cowell. He's like, everybody needs a Simon. In other words, everybody needs someone who is willing to tell them the truth. Whether that means you got lettuce in your teeth or toilet paper on the sole of your shoe, or if a future as a professional singer is not ahead for you. Like that is not how your life is going to end up. Somebody needs somebody who's going to tell them that. And by the way, if you ever watched American Idol back in the day, it was so sad that every really bad singer had people in their corner who were telling them, you got this, girl. You got this, man. You sing great. You are going to be the next American Idol. And they weren't. They needed a Simon. The Proverbs 27:6 says this. I love this. Wounds from a friend, they can be trusted. But an enemy multiplies kisses. In other words, someone who really loves you and cares about you, they may wound you with the truth. It may hurt. It may not be what you wanted to hear. But that wound, it can be trusted. It can be trusted way more than the kisses or the flattery of your enemy. And by the way, if flattery and feel good is all someone ever gives you, they are your enemy, even if they gave birth to you. They don't love you this way. And so we need to ask ourselves, hold on, is this somebody who's going to tell me the truth? Is this somebody who's going to tell me something that I don't want to hear if I need to hear it? Now, speaking of truth, the ugly truth about me and the ugly truth about you is that we often seek out people who will tell us what we want to hear because we don't want to know what we don't know. We actually don't want to hear that. In fact, in decision-making science, this is called confirmation bias, and we all have it. And that's why people say things like, well, I don't want to ask her. I already know what she's going to say. I'm not going to ask. I know what I'm not going to ask him. He always says the same old thing every time. He's going to talk about due diligence, and he's going to see a business plan, and he's going to want to see the financials. He's so negative. He's so critical. Why doesn't he just believe in me? Why doesn't she just believe in me and support me? And being supported is awesome. Being supported is great, but we often seek out people who will tell us the truth because we would rather be supported than be smart. And being supported is great unless I'm headed towards a regret, unless there's danger in the road or something destructive in the future that person can see, in which case being supported would be what an enemy would do for me. And if I'd rather be smart, I'm going to seek out people who are going to tell me the truth. We're going to give me their perspective that I need to hear, even if I don't want to hear it. And that leads to the second thing. In order to seek that person out, I have got to ask people who have been where I want to be. I've got to ask people who have been where I want to be. The right person is wise, meaning they have a context already for the thing that I'm trying to work myself through. And you need to find people who are where you want to be and who have, here's wisdom, who have consistently demonstrated good decision-making and good behaviors in the area that you want to be good in. Because here's what you're saying. In a sense, when you ask somebody for advice, that you might not think of it this way, you're saying, hey, I want to be where you're at in your marriage someday. I want to get what you've gotten in the arena of romance or marriage. I want to be where you're at financially. With your entire, like I want to be able to do in business or in leadership or in management what you've been able to do. I want to get where you got. I want to do in friendship or in dating or with kids, with parenting. I want to be able to do what you've done. I look at what you've done. I want to be where you're at spiritually. I want to be where you're at emotionally. I want to get where you've gotten to, and I don't know what you don't know. What I don't know. Can you share some of your map with me? Can you share with me what you have seen and what you've learned that I haven't learned yet? And the problem with the way we ask advice is we often talk to people who are no further down the road than we are, and they don't know what we don't know either. And so it's like you're having marital problems, like you're struggling in your marriage and your work, and a guy walks by your office door, he's like, hey, what's up? He acknowledges you, and then you're like, hey, come in here and close the door, and he sits down, and you're so mad at you, you're like, my wife, yada, 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 and he says, well, you know what I would do? He's 3-time divorced himself, and I would tell her this, and you're like, you're exactly right, and that's what you go off and do, and you do what he's always done, and you end up getting what he got. In fact, Proverbs 13:20 is all about this. It says this, those who walk with wise people, they just get wiser. They gain more wisdom, but a companion of fools suffers harm. And we've all heard the saying, it's famous in recovery circles, but it's so famous that other people have heard it too, that it's if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you know what it is? Get what you got. In fact, the definition of insanity is doing what you've always done and thinking you're going to get something else. Like, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. It's like, yeah, that is so true. But you know what else is true? If you do what someone else has always done, you're going to get what they got. And you need to ask yourself, do I want to get what they got? As I look at their life, do I want to be where they ended up? Do I want to have what they have? Because if I do what they do, I'm going to end up at their destination. I need to ask the right people. I need to ask people who tell me truth. And I need to ask wise people who have consistently demonstrated skillful or successful behavior, who are where I want to be, who know what I don't know. And this is very important. I need to ask the right questions. I need to ask some specific questions because most people want to support us, not tell us the truth that we don't want to hear. I need to ask them to. I need to request that. 3 questions, by the way, that these don't have to be asked specifically in this wording. It's like, this is the vibe of the question, okay? And you can come up with your own ways of asking this. But the first one is this. When I'm asking questions, I'm trying to suss out, is this a wise thing for me to do? Is this wise for me to do? I mean, in light of where I am right now and what my story has been, what my baggage has been, and where I want to be, is this the wise thing? And here's why that's a good question, because so often the issues we're stumbling through are not necessarily right or wrong. It's not right or wrong to move to Texas. It's not right or wrong to completely change your careers right now. It's not right or wrong for you to go back to school and get a degree in psychology so you can be a therapist. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but it may or may not be very smart for you right now in this season of your life for any number of reasons. Is this wise? Is this wise? Proverbs, another proverb. Here we go. 28:26 says, those who, here it is, trust in themselves, that's just so dumb. That's just so foolish. But those who walk in wisdom, is this wise? Is this a wise path for me right now? They are delivered. They are delivered from so much pain, from so much heartache, from so much regret, from so many wasted years and so much wasted money. Is this wise? I'm like, trying to decide this right now. What do you think? State of the field, state of the industry, whatever it is, knowing what you know, is this a wise decision for me right now? Now, the second question, this one's a great one. Is there anything you see that I'm missing? Such a great question. This is the I can't see what I can't see question, but what can you see? Like, what are the pitfalls that you can see? What are the hazards in the road? Maybe you ran into them yourself. Do you see, as I'm telling you my story, I'm spilling this, are there any red flags or orange flags or even yellow flags that I'm not seeing that you see from what you've come to understand about God and life and relationships and what works and family or parenting or money or business and so forth? From what you know about me, what do you see that I can... Are you seeing anything that I'm missing? Am I even asking the right questions? What questions would you be asking if you were where I am right now in this journey? And question number 2 is the what do I see that I can't see question. Proverbs 19:2 says this. This is so great. Desire without knowledge is not good. By the way, whenever we start off in any new season or trajectory of life, that's where we start off. We got some desires, there's some things I want and I'm hoping, and we do not have a lot of knowledge. There are things we know that we don't even know. Here's what I desire, but I don't even know what I don't know. So I don't want to be hasty and jump into some hot mess that I will regret later. That's question number 2. And then question number 3 is the knowing what I don't know question. What have you learned? What have you learned? Because you are where I want to be. And you got there maybe through all kinds of bumps and heartaches of your own. What have you learned that would benefit me based on your experience? Like, what do you know about God, about finance, about marriage, about emotional health, about this particular field or vocation? What do you know that would set me up for health and thriving and success as I stumble forward into this? What advice can you give me? What do I need to know so that I can be prepared for whatever's next? I just want to learn. Everything I can learn, everything I need to learn to help me avoid the regretful wrong what's next, choose a better, healthier, wiser what's next, and just be better prepared for whatever's next. Because here's the thing. If you should have seen it coming, somebody could have seen it coming. If you should have seen it coming, somebody could have seen it coming and probably did. They may have seen it coming, but you didn't know because you never asked the right people the right question. How can you know what you don't want to? How can you know what you don't know in order to avoid that wrong what's next, choose the right what's next, and be prepared? And Solomon says, hey, if you'll just begin leaning hard into God now, in this area of your life, in this arena of life, in every arena of life, and if you will be selective in who you ask, people who will tell you the truth, and people who know what you don't know, and if you will ask good questions and prayerfully listen, you will be amazed at how well and how clearly God can guide you in your life, sometimes without even you realizing what he's done, and you will consistently find yourself choosing the wise what's next and being prepared for what's next. Now, one thing that's true of all change, it's true of all transitions in life, is that change and transition creates stress. It creates stress for us, and change, especially big changes where there's a lot of change going on, they have a way of creating a kind of motion sickness for us that shows up in our lives emotionally as stress or tension or physical problems or shortness of patience and relational tension and panic and anxiety and even depression. And that's where we're picking it up next week in part 3 of Pack Your Bags. Let me close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you that you're always trying to tell us what we need to know. And gosh, sorry that we often don't want to hear it. We're trying to ignore it, but you just have a way of shining your light into shadows, of breaking down walls that we set up, of recklessly, relentlessly loving us and pursuing us. And so I just pray for all of us, however we're processing this and whatever we're hoping will be what's next in our lives, that you would give us, once again, the ears to hear what we needed to hear, the eyes to see what we're trying to avoid seeing, the grace to receive it, to take it into ourselves, and the wisdom and courage to know what to do with it. And I pray that for myself. I pray that for all of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here with us today. Before you take off, Scott and Dominic were telling you about this Connect card that we would love to get from you. All of us who are here, we'd love to hear from everybody, even if you've been here 1,000 times. By the way, they're telling you about this tour that's coming up. We love the tour. Would you write "tour me" somewhere on this Connect card like I did right there? I mangled my Connect card, by the way. I don't know how you did. And you can throw that in the offering basket. And also, they were telling you about this life group sign-up brochure, and you can throw this entire brochure in there. You do not need to rip that part off, but just let us know which group or groups you're thinking about joining for this summer. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun summer. There are some really fun groups in there. Or you can take this home. You can sign up online as well. The website is on here too. So you can carry that with you, or you can throw it in the offering basket. And of course, you can place your offering there as well as give online and give on the app. And we really do believe, especially when things are tight financially, and they are these days, the generosity changes the world, and it really changes us. It shapes our heart. When we hold on to things more tightly, that shapes our heart. And when we open our hands more fully and widely, that changes our heart too. It shapes us. It shapes the kind of community we are and allows us to do really fun things like the things we've been doing this weekend with Kids Feeding Kids and Village of Hope. And so thank you for your generosity. And you can throw those offering envelopes in the offering basket and, of course, give online and on the app. And then I hope you'll have a wise next week. Please join us again for the series finale as we talk about motion sickness. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic, very wise week. We'll see you next weekend.